"Who is that?" His beta pointed. "Your Majesty, the woman entering—" He saw her. Saw him. The exiled king's hand rested on her lower back, possessive, protective. The severed bond roared to life, screaming at something that couldn't be real. She was supposed to be dead, broken. Instead, she just walked into his court, claimed by the one wolf he couldn't fight. If you believe people who abuse power deserve to lose everything, hit subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Only cowards who side with tyrants won't.
The lunar convergence happened once every decade. Every pack in the territories gathered under one roof, and the politics were as sharp as the claws hidden beneath formal gloves. Aeloria had been trying to disappear into the stone wall for the past hour. She wore a dress borrowed from another Omega, pale gray, fraying at the hem, 2 seasons out of style. The fabric felt wrong against her skin, too tight at the ribs, too loose everywhere else. She braided her dark hair close to her scalp, hoping to hide the one feature that made people stare. Her eyes. One gold, one silver. Heterochromia, the healers called it. Cursed, everyone else called it. The Shadow Peak delegation hadn't wanted to bring her. Alpha Garen had made that clear. "You'll stay silent," he'd said during the 3-day journey. "You'll stay invisible. If anyone asks, you're a servant." She was 18. Mayless. Powerless. The lowest rank in a pack that barely tolerated her existence. And then the bond hit. It wasn't gentle. It was a fist through her chest, grabbing her heart and squeezing. Her wolf surged forward, howling with recognition so violent it drowned out thought. "Mate." Aeloria's head snapped up. Her vision swam, searching, desperate, following the golden thread that had just wrapped around her soul like a noose. And she saw him. King Valerius stood on the raised dais at the front of the hall, mid-conversation with the Alpha of the Eastern Territories. He was exactly what a king should look like. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge. Authority. Dominance. Perfection. And he froze. The conversation died. His hand, raised mid-gesture, hung in the air. His dark eyes went wide, then narrow, scanning the crowd with predatory focus. Aeloria watched him find her. The bond pulled taut between them, humming with inevitability. Her wolf was screaming, pawing at her insides, begging her to run to him, to submit, to claim, to... Valerius's expression changed. Not to joy, not to recognition, to disgust. He descended the dais steps slowly, deliberately, and the crowd parted. 300 wolves moved aside without being asked, creating a corridor of space between the king and the girl pressed against the back wall. Aeloria couldn't move. Her legs had locked. Her chest felt too tight to breathe. Valerius stopped 10 feet away, close enough for the bond to scream between them, far enough to make a statement. "You." His voice carried. It was designed to carry. "Step forward." She obeyed. Not because she wanted to, because her wolf gave her no choice. Up close, the bond was unbearable. Every instinct demanded she reach for him, touch him, complete the connection. Her hands shook with the effort of keeping them at her sides. Valerius studied her the way someone might study an insect they were considering crushing. "State your name and pack." "Aeloria." Her voice came out hoarse. "Shadow Peak delegation." "And your rank?" The question was a trap. She knew it was a trap. But the bond wouldn't let her lie. "Omega." The word rippled through the crowd. Murmurs. Gasps. Someone laughed. Valerius's jaw tightened. "Show me your eyes." She'd been keeping her head down, letting her hair fall forward. Now she lifted her chin and met his gaze directly. Gold and silver. His reaction was immediate. He took a step back as if she'd struck him. "Cursed," someone whispered. "Marked by bad luck." The moon goddess wouldn't. Silence. Valerius's command cut through the noise like a blade. The hall went quiet. He circled her slowly. Aeloria stood frozen, feeling his gaze catalog every flaw. The borrowed dress, the worn shoes, the way her frame was too thin from years of getting the smallest portions. She'd grown up being looked at like this, like something broken, but never by her mate. "An Omega," Valerius said, speaking to the crowd now rather than to her. "Powerless." from an insignificant pack, marked with the curse of mismatched eyes. He stopped in front of her again. The moon goddess makes mistakes. The bond screamed in protest. Aeloria felt it writhing inside her chest, confused, hurt, desperate to fix whatever was wrong. Your Majesty, she whispered. The formal address tasted like ash. The bond is irrelevant. He cut her off. I am king of the Northern Territories. I need a Luna who brings strength, alliances, power. His lip curled. Not a charity case who can't even dress herself properly. Someone in the crowd snickered. The sound was like a match to kindling. Suddenly there were more laughs, more whispers, spreading through the assembled packs like disease. Aeloria's face burned. She wanted to run. Her wolf wanted to submit, to beg, to make him understand. But her feet wouldn't move. Valerius raised his hand. The hall fell silent instantly. I, King Valerius of the Northern Territories, reject you, Aeloria of Shadowpeak, as my mate and my Luna. The words hit like a physical blow. Aeloria gasped, her hand flying to her chest as the bond began to fray. No, she breathed. Please, you don't have to. Do you accept this rejection? His voice was ice. The bond was unraveling, thread by golden thread, and each one that snapped sent agony through her nervous system. Her wolf was howling, clawing, fighting to hold on. Do you accept? Valerius repeated, louder now. If she didn't accept, the bond would linger. Incomplete. Torture for them both. She'd heard stories of rejected mates who refused to let go. They went mad from the pain, from the constant pull toward someone who didn't want them. Her voice cracked. I accept. The bond exploded. It didn't fade gently. It detonated inside her chest, and Aeloria's scream tore through the hall as she collapsed. Her vision went white. Every nerve ending caught fire. She felt her wolf retreat, wounded, whimpering, curling up in the darkest corner of her mind to hide from the pain. When her vision cleared, she was on her hands and knees on the marble floor. Blood dripped from her nose. Her whole body shook. Valerius hadn't moved. He stood above her, unmoved, untouched. If the severed bond caused him any pain, he didn't show it. Someone escort her out, he said, dismissing her with a wave. And summon the Shadowpeak Alpha. We need to discuss why he brought this to my hall. 2 guards moved forward, grabbing Aeloria by the arms and hauling her upright. Her legs barely worked. They dragged her toward the side exit while the crowd watched in silence. As the doors closed behind her, she heard the conversations resume. Business as usual. The lunar convergence would continue. One rejected Omega wasn't important enough to interrupt the festivities. They dumped her in an empty corridor and left without a word. Aeloria sat with her back against the cold stone wall, arms wrapped around her knees, feeling the empty space where the bond used to be. It was like missing a limb, like something essential had been carved out and the wound was still bleeding. Her wolf wouldn't respond, wouldn't even acknowledge her. She'd been rejected before, by her pack, by other wolves, by life itself. But this was different. The moon goddess had chosen them. Fate itself had said, this is yours. And Valerius had looked at fate and said no. Footsteps approached. Alpha Garen appeared. His expression thunderous. Get up. She tried. Failed. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. Garen grabbed her arm and yanked her upright. Do you have any idea what you've just cost us? The embarrassment you've brought to our pack. I didn't. The king wants nothing to do with you. Neither do I. He shoved a leather pouch into her hands. Here's 20 silver. Find your own way home. You're no longer part of the Shadowpeak pack. He walked away before she could respond. 20 silver. Not enough for passage home. Maybe enough for food if she was careful. Aeloria slid back down the wall and closed her eyes. The bond wound throbbed with every heartbeat. In the distance, she could hear music starting in the grand hall. They were dancing now. Celebrating. She'd been discarded twice in 10 minutes. The only question was whether she had enough strength left to survive it. If you can't stand wolves like Valerius who judge people by their rank and appearance, comment, everyone deserves respect. Join Seraphina's romance stories, where real wolves stand against tyrants. Aeloria walked for 3 days. The 20 silver bought her passage on a merchant cart heading east, But the driver kicked her out 2 territories away when another passenger complained about traveling with cursed cargo. She spent 4 silver on stale bread and kept walking. The wound in her chest never stopped bleeding. Not literally, but it felt literal. Every step sent phantom pain through the space where the bond used to be. Her wolf had gone completely silent. Not dead, but so deeply withdrawn that Aeloria couldn't feel her presence at all. By the 3rd day she wasn't sure where she was going. Away. Anywhere. Nowhere. The road climbed into the mountains, and the air grew thin and cold. She'd left her borrowed coat with the Shadow Peak pack. All she had was the gray dress and determination that was rapidly failing. When the sun set on the 3rd night, she finally admitted she was going to die out here. The thought was almost comforting. She found a stream, drank deeply, and sat on the bank with her back against a tree. Her feet were blistered and bleeding through her worn shoes. Her stomach had stopped growling hours ago. Hunger had moved past discomfort into numbness. Just rest, she told herself. Just for a moment. She closed her eyes. The sound of footsteps woke her. Multiple sets. Boots on stone. Aeloria's eyes snapped open. 3 men stood in a semicircle in front of her, wearing mismatched armor and carrying weapons that had seen too much use. Rogues. Wolves without packs, which meant wolves without laws. Well, the largest one said, grinning. Look what we found. She tried to stand. Her legs gave out immediately, dumping her back against the tree. Easy little Omega, another one crooned. We're not going to hurt you. Much. The largest one crouched down to her eye level. His breath reeked of alcohol. What's a pretty thing like you doing alone in the mountains? Leaving me alone, Aeloria said, surprised by how steady her voice came out. That's what you're doing. He laughed. I don't think so. See, we've been watching you all day. No pack scent. No protection. That means you're fair game. She tried to call on her wolf. Nothing. The rejection had broken something fundamental, and her wolf wasn't coming to help. The rogue reached for her hair. Touch her and die. The voice came from the darkness behind them, deep and controlled. All 3 rogues spun toward the source. A figure stepped out of the tree line. He was tall, taller than the rogues, taller than Valerius, with shoulders that suggested he didn't need armor to be dangerous. His hair was dark, longer than fashion dictated, pulled back in a style that was more practical than decorative. He wore simple traveling clothes, but the way he moved spoke of training, discipline, and absolute confidence. But it was his eyes that made Aeloria's breath catch. Ice blue. Sharp. Focused. And fixed on her. This doesn't concern you, traveler, the largest rogue said. Move along. The stranger tilted his head slightly. I'll give you 1 chance to walk away. 3 against 1. Another rogue pointed out, drawing his blade. Bad odds for you. I wasn't talking about me. The stranger smiled, and it was the kind of smile that preceded violence. I was being generous with your life expectancy. The largest rogue snarled and charged. What happened next took approximately 4 seconds. The stranger sidestepped the charge, grabbed the rogue's extended arm, and used his own momentum to drive him face first into the tree trunk. The crack was audible. The rogue dropped and didn't move. The second rogue attacked from the side. The stranger caught the descending blade with his bare hand. Aeloria watched in shock as his skin shifted, hardening into something that made the steel screech against it, and drove his other fist into the rogue's solar plexus. The man folded and hit the ground, gasping. The third rogue ran. The stranger let him go. Then he turned to Aeloria and dropped into a crouch, putting himself at eye level the way the rogue had done. But his body language was completely different. Non-threatening. Careful. You're hurt, he said. I'm fine. You're bleeding through your shoes and you can barely stand. That's not fine. He shrugged off his traveling pack and pulled out a leather flask. Drink. I don't. It's water. Just water. He held it out, waiting. Aeloria took it with shaking hands and drank. It was cool and clean, better than the stream water, and she drained half the flask before her body reminded her that drinking too fast after days of deprivation was a bad idea. The stranger took the flask back and produced a small package wrapped in cloth. Dried meat and hard cheese. Eat. Slowly. Why are you helping me? Because you need help. He said it like it was obvious. Like finding dying omega she-wolves in the mountains and rescuing them from rogues was a normal part of his evening. Aeloria took a small bite of the cheese. Her stomach cramped immediately, but the food stayed down. Thank you. What's your name? She hesitated. Names had power. But he just saved her life and lying seemed wrong. Aeloria. Aeloria, he repeated, and something in his tone made her look up sharply. He was studying her face with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. And you're running from something. It wasn't a question. I'm not running. I'm leaving. What's the difference? Running implies I have somewhere to go. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair point. He stood and offered his hand. Can you walk? Eventually. That's not encouraging. He glanced at the unconscious rogues. But we can't stay here. The one who ran will probably bring friends, and they'll be less polite. You don't have to. There's a settlement half a day north. I'll take you there, get you proper food and rest, and you can decide what comes next. He kept his hand extended. No obligations. No expectations. Just help. Aeloria stared at that hand for a long moment. Every instinct screamed not to trust strangers. Especially not male strangers who appeared out of nowhere and fought like trained warriors. But she was dying. That was just fact. Another night alone in these mountains would kill her. She took his hand. His grip was warm and steady as he pulled her upright. She swayed immediately, and he caught her elbow without making a show of it. Can you shift? He asked. She shook her head. Her wolf still wouldn't respond. Something flickered in his expression, concern maybe or understanding. Then we walk. Slowly. Tell me if you need to stop. They walked in silence for the first hour. He matched his pace to hers, never complaining about how slow she was, never showing impatience. When she stumbled, he was there. When she needed to rest, he found a place without questioning. It was the first time in 3 days someone had treated her like she mattered. You never told me your name, Aeloria said when they stopped for another rest. He glanced at her, something unreadable in those ice-blue eyes. Dominic. Just Dominic? For now. He offered the water flask again. Names can be complicated. That's cryptic. So is a lone omega with no pack scent wandering the Death Pass mountains. He raised an eyebrow. We all have our secrets. She couldn't argue with that. They reached the settlement as dawn broke. It was small. Maybe 30 buildings clustered around a central square, tucked into a valley that offered protection from the worst mountain winds. Dominic led her directly to a modest inn, spoke quietly with the proprietor, and secured a room without Aeloria having to say a word. Rest, he said, handing her the key. I'll have food sent up. Wait. She caught his arm before he could leave. Why are you doing this? Dominic looked down at where her hand touched his sleeve, then back at her face. Because someone should have done it for you already. And they didn't. He left before she could respond. The room was simple but clean. A bed. A wash basin. A window that looked out over the valley. Aeloria stood there for a long moment, trying to process the last 12 hours. A stranger had saved her, fed her, brought her somewhere safe, and asked for nothing in return. The bond wound in her chest throbbed, reminding her that not all wolves were like Dominic. Some looked at fate and love and said no. Some valued crowns over connection. She touched the empty space over her heart and wondered if it would ever stop hurting. Then she crawled into bed and slept for 16 hours straight. If you believe real strength is helping those who need it, not stepping on them, hit subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Because Valerius represents everything wrong with power, and you're better than that. Aeloria woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of food. A tray sat on the small table, bread, cheese, fruit, and a pot of tea that was still steaming. She ate slowly, letting her body adjust, feeling strength return in increments. When she finally emerged from the room, the innkeeper directed her to the common area. Dominic sat at a corner table, reviewing what looked like correspondence, a half-empty mug beside him. He looked up when she approached. Better. Much. She slid into the chair across from him. Thank you. For everything. I should pay you back, but I only have. Keep your silver. He waved it off. Consider it an investment in making sure you don't die in my mountains. Your mountains. Something flickered in his expression. Figure of speech. Aeloria studied him in the daylight. He had the kind of face that was hard to read, strong features but controlled. Everything about him was measured, deliberate. Like someone who'd learned not to give anything away. You're not a rogue, she said. What makes you say that? The way you fight. The way you carry yourself. The way the innkeeper looked at you when you walked in. She leaned forward slightly. You're someone. Or you were. Dominic's mouth quirked. Observant. Survival skill. Fair. He set down the parchment he'd been reading. You're right. I'm not a rogue. I was removed from my position several years ago. Now I live up here, away from politics and pack drama. What position? He hesitated, then seemed to decide something. I was an alpha king. The words hung between them. Was, Aeloria repeated slowly. Was. His tone didn't invite questions. It's a long story, most of it boring, all of it over. Now I'm just Dominic and I prefer it that way. An exiled king. Living alone in the mountains. Helping random strangers. Why did you help me? She asked again. I told you. No. Really. You don't seem like someone who does things without reason. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, ice blue eyes studying her face. 3 days ago I felt a bond break. It was powerful enough to reach me even up here, which means it was between two very strong wolves. The echo of it. He paused. Felt wrong. Like something sacred had been destroyed carelessly. Aeloria's hand moved unconsciously to her chest. When I found you, Dominic continued, I saw the wound. Recognized it. Someone rejected their fated mate, and judging by how badly you're hurt, they did it publicly and cruelly. His jaw tightened. I have strong opinions about wolves who abuse power like that. It was the king, Aeloria said quietly. King Valerius of the Northern Territories. The bond formed at the lunar convergence and he took one look at me and decided I wasn't good enough. Because you're an Omega. Because I'm everything wrong. The words came out bitter. Low rank. No pack. Cursed eyes. I'm the kind of mate that embarrasses a king in front of his subjects. Then he's a fool. The certainty in Dominic's voice made her look up sharply. Power doesn't come from crowns, he said. It comes from here. He tapped his temple. And here. His chest. Everything else is just decoration. The fact that he couldn't see that says more about his weakness than yours. Something in Aeloria's chest. Not the bond wound, something else stirred. You don't know me, she said. I could actually be worthless. You survived 3 days alone in the death pass with no supplies, no pack, and a severed mate bond that should have killed you. Dominic's eyes never left hers. That's not worthless. That's extraordinary. No one had ever called her extraordinary. Aeloria had to look away before the tears started. Stay, Dominic said suddenly. Here. In the settlement. There's a healer who could look at your bond wound. Make sure it's healing properly. And you need time to figure out what comes next. I can't afford. The room's already paid for. A month. A month. She stared at him. Why would you? Because you need it. And because. He hesitated, something vulnerable crossing his features for just a moment. Because I know what it's like to lose everything in a single moment. How disorienting it is. How impossible it feels to see a path forward. His voice softened. You need time. I'm offering it. No strings. Aeloria wanted to argue. Wanted to insist she could handle it herself, that she didn't need charity, that she was fine. But she wasn't fine. She was broken and lost and so tired she could barely think. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Thank you. Dominic nodded once, then stood. The healer's name is Mira. Tell her I sent you. She'll take care of you. He started to leave, then paused at the doorway. Aeloria? That king of yours made a mistake. Catastrophic one. And one day he's going to realize exactly what he threw away. His eyes met hers across the room. Make sure when that day comes, you're strong enough not to care. Then he was gone. Aeloria sat in the empty common room, staring at the space he'd occupied, feeling something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Small. Fragile. But real. She touched the wound over her heart and found it hurt just a little bit less. If you believe people like Dominic restore your faith in decent wolves, comment, "This is real strength," and subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories. Let Valerius and his shallow crown sit alone. The month became 2, then 3. Mira the healer was a middle-aged she-wolf with gentle hands and sharp eyes. She examined Aeloria's bond wound and hissed through her teeth. "Whoever did this knew exactly how much pain they were causing," she said. "A clean rejection is one thing. This was designed to hurt." She prescribed rest, meditation, and a series of herbal teas that tasted like punishment but slowly, gradually helped the wound close. The pain faded from constant to occasional. Aeloria's wolf began to resurface, tentative at first, like an animal that had been beaten and was learning to trust again. And Dominic was there. Not intrusively, not demandingly, just present. He appeared at the inn most mornings, sometimes with fresh bread, sometimes with books he thought she'd like, always with an easy greeting and no expectations. They fell into a pattern. Breakfast together, conversation that ranged from meaningless to profound, comfortable silence when words weren't needed. He never pushed, never asked about her past unless she offered, never made her feel like she owed him anything. "Tell me about the mountains," Aeloria said one morning. They were sitting on the inn's back porch, watching the sun burn off the morning mist. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Why you're here. What you do. Why an exiled king lives like a hermit instead of trying to reclaim his throne." Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "I was young when I took the crown. 23. Too young, really, but my father died suddenly and the pack needed leadership." He stared out at the mountains. "I thought I was doing well. The kingdom prospered. Alliances were strong. But I made enemies. Other packs who wanted my territory, advisors who wanted more power, a particularly ambitious duchess who wanted the crown for her son. What happened? Betrayal. Dramatic, coordinated, very nearly successful." His tone was matter-of-fact, but something in his eyes went cold. "They accused me of crimes I didn't commit, produced false evidence, turned half my own court against me. The council voted for my exile rather than execution as a mercy." "That's not mercy," Aeloria said quietly. "No. But it let me keep my life." He turned to look at her. "I could have fought. Could have started a war to reclaim my crown. But I'd seen what that kind of fighting does. The innocent wolves who die, the families destroyed, the land torn apart." He shook his head. "I chose to walk away. Figured if the kingdom wanted me gone badly enough to manufacture treason, then maybe I wasn't meant to rule it." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes." He was quiet again. "But mostly I regret not seeing the betrayal coming. Not protecting the wolves who were loyal to me. They suffered for my blindness." Aeloria reached out and touched his hand where it rested on the porch railing. "You're still protecting wolves. You saved me." Dominic looked down at where her fingers brushed his, and something shifted in his expression. "Maybe I needed to save someone. To prove I could still do something that mattered." Their eyes met and held. The moment stretched, loaded with something Aeloria didn't want to name. Something dangerous and impossible and definitely, absolutely not allowed. She pulled her hand back. I need to help with the lunch service." She fled before he could respond. But that night, lying in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. The way his hand had felt under hers. The way her wolf had stirred. Not with mate bond recognition, but with something else. Something chosen. "Stop it," she told herself firmly. "He's being kind. That's all. Don't read into it. Don't be that pathetic." But her heart didn't listen. Over the following weeks, Aeloria threw herself into making herself useful. She worked at the inn, helped Mira with her healing practice, learned to hunt from some of the settlement scouts. Her wolf grew stronger. Her body filled out from regular meals. The haunted look faded from her face. And Dominic taught her to fight. "You survived the death pass through sheer luck," he said one morning, leading her to a clearing outside the settlement. "Next time I want it to be skill." He was patient but demanding. Showed her how to use an opponent's size against them, where to strike for maximum impact, how to read body language before an attack came. Training sessions left her bruised and exhausted, but she got better. Faster. Stronger. Again, Dominic called after she'd successfully countered his attack for the first time. They clashed again, and this time Aeloria saw the opening he'd left deliberately. She took it, using the momentum of her smaller frame to slip inside his guard and drive her shoulder into his solar plexus. Dominic staggered back, genuinely surprised. Good. That was very good. Aeloria grinned, breathing hard. You're a good teacher. You're a good student. He moved closer, adjusting her stance with a touch to her elbow, her shoulder. But you're still compensating with the wrong leg. If someone expects that. His hand lingered on her shoulder. They were close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him, smell pine and leather and something indefinably him. Dominic, she said softly. He stepped back immediately. Sorry. I didn't mean to. You didn't do anything wrong. I want you to, she didn't say. I want you to not step back. I want you to see me the way I'm starting to see you. But she couldn't say that. He was helping her out of pity, out of kindness, because he was a good wolf who saved broken things. Not because he felt what she was beginning to feel. That evening, Aeloria sat with Mira in the healing house, helping prepare tinctures. You're settling in well, Mira observed. The settlement likes you. I like it here. And Dominic? Aeloria's hand stilled over the mortar and pestle. What about him? Don't play innocent with me, child. I've been watching you two dance around each other for months. Mira smiled knowingly. He looks at you like you're precious. And you look at him like he hung the moon. It's not like that. Why not? Because. Aeloria struggled for words. 'Cause I'm damaged goods. A rejected mate with nothing to offer. He's just being kind. Dominic is many things, Mira said firmly. But he doesn't do anything out of mere kindness. If he's spending every day with you, training you, sharing meals with you, making sure you're cared for, that's not pity. That's interest. He's an exiled king. I'm a cursed Omega. He's a man who knows what matters. And you're a woman who survived what should have killed her. Mira fixed her with a stern look. Stop deciding what he feels. Let him tell you himself. But Aeloria couldn't shake the fear. Couldn't shake the memory of standing in that grand hall, while Valerius catalogued every reason she wasn't good enough. What if she let herself hope, and Dominic eventually saw her the same way? She couldn't survive that twice. Subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories if you believe Aeloria deserves happiness, not because fate said so, but because she's strong enough to rebuild. Only toxic wolves like Valerius think rejection defines worth. The summons arrived on a cold morning 6 months after Aeloria had arrived in the mountains. A messenger on horseback, wearing the colors of the Northern Territories, asking for the former King Dominic. Aeloria was working in Myra's garden when she saw Dominic speaking with the messenger in the settlement square. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders. The messenger departed quickly. Dominic stood alone, staring at the parchment in his hands. She approached cautiously. What's wrong? He looked up and his expression was unreadable. The Lunar Summit is in 3 weeks. All territories are required to send representatives. The council has requested my presence. They exiled you. How can they request? Because technically, I'm still recognized as the ruler of the Eastern Territories. I gave up the crown, but the title itself was never officially transferred. He crumpled the parchment. It's political maneuvering. They want to force me into a position where I either bow to their authority or challenge it openly. Don't go. If I don't go, it's an insult to every pack in my former territory. It gives the council excuse to declare war and absorb the eastern lands entirely. His jaw tightened. I have to go. I have to protect what remains of my people, even if they don't want me as their king anymore. Aeloria's stomach twisted. The Lunar Summit, where all the territories gathered, where Valerius would be. I'm coming with you, she said. Absolutely not. You can't stop me. Aeloria. If you're walking into a political trap, you need someone watching your back. Someone who understands how power works because they've been crushed by it. She stepped closer. And I refuse to hide in these mountains while you face your enemies alone. Dominic studied her face for a long moment. He'll be there. Your former mate. I know. Seeing him again could hurt you. So could losing you. The words came out before she could stop them. The air between them went very still. Aeloria, Dominic said quietly. If you come with me, people will talk. They'll assume things. Being seen at my side could damage your reputation further. I don't care about my reputation. I care about you not walking into a trap alone. Why? His voice was rough now. Why do you care? Because I'm falling in love with you, she thought. Because you've shown me what real strength looks like. Because when you touch me during training, my whole body lights up. Because you actually see me in a way no one else ever has. Because you saved me, she said instead. Let me return the favor. Dominic held her gaze for a heartbeat longer, then nodded slowly. All right. But we do this carefully. We go in prepared, we watch each other's backs, and we leave the moment the politics get too dangerous. Agreed. He extended his hand. She took it. And neither of them mentioned that they held on longer than necessary. The journey took 2 weeks. Dominic secured proper clothes for both of them. His traveling leathers replaced with the formal attire of his former station, though he refused the crown. For Aeloria, he commissioned a dress that made her breath catch when she saw it. Deep forest green fitted perfectly, with silver embroidery that caught the light. It was easily the finest thing she'd ever worn. You didn't have to, she started. Yes, I did. Dominic's expression was firm. If you're going to walk into that hall at my side, you'll do it looking like you belong there. No borrowed rags. No apologies. You deserve to be seen. Aeloria touched the fabric throat tight. Thank you. Thank me after we survive whatever hell they've planned. They arrived at the northern capital 3 days before the summit. The city had grown since Aeloria's last visit. More buildings, more wolves, more everything. The grand hall loomed in the center, familiar and terrible. Dominic secured rooms at an inn far from the castle. We stay low until the summit. No unnecessary attention. But attention found them anyway. On the second night, there was a knock at Aeloria's door. She opened it to find a woman in expensive silks, flanked by 2 guards. You're the one who was rejected, the woman said without preamble. The cursed Omega. Aeloria's hackles rose. And you are? Lady Seraphina, Duchess of the Western Territories. She looked Aeloria up and down with cold assessment. I'm here to offer advice. When you attend the summit, and rumor says you're coming with the exiled king, don't make a scene. Don't embarrass yourself further. King Valerius has moved on. You should too. I'm not here for Valerius. No. Lady Seraphina smiled thinly. Then why come at all? To parade your new protector? To make some pathetic claim for sympathy? She leaned closer. You were rejected for good reason. Don't mistake temporary charity for anything meaningful. Before Aeloria could respond, Dominic's voice cut through the hallway. I suggest you leave. Now. Lady Seraphina turned, irritation flashing across her features. Former King Dominic. How tragic to see you reduced to defending rejected mates. How tragic to see you still meddling in affairs that don't concern you. Dominic moved between Aeloria and the Duchess. This woman is under my protection. Insult her again and we'll have a problem. The Duchess's eyes narrowed. You're not a king anymore, Dominic. Your threats carry no weight. Try me. The staring contest lasted 3 seconds before Lady Seraphina backed down. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you. The summit will eat you both alive. She swept away, guards following. Dominic turned to Aeloria. You all right? Fine. She was shaking. Just fine. No, you're not. He guided her back into the room and closed the door. That was a warning shot. They're going to come at you at the summit, try to embarrass you, use you against me. Why? What do you have that they want? The Eastern Territories. If they can discredit me completely, they can justify absorbing my former lands into their kingdoms. He sat heavily on the chair. And you're an easy target. The rejected Omega standing beside the fallen king. We're both symbols of failure in their eyes. Then maybe I shouldn't go. Stop. Dominic's voice was sharp. Don't let them make you hide. That's what they want. To make you small enough that you disappear. What if they're right? Aeloria whispered. What if I am just damaged goods? What if being seen with me hurts you? Dominic stood and crossed to where she sat on the bed. He dropped to a crouch so they were eye level, his hands coming to rest on her knees, the touch light, respectful but grounding. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "You are not damaged. You are not less than. You survived something that breaks most wolves and you came out stronger. Anyone who can't see that is blind." Valerius couldn't see it. Valerius is a fool who mistakes a crown for actual power. Dominic's ice blue eyes held hers. "I see it. Every day. Your strength. Your resilience. The way you refuse to give up, even when everything's stacked against you." His voice softened. "That's not damaged. That's extraordinary." The same word he'd used 6 months ago. The word that had started to heal something inside her. "I don't want to be your weakness," Aeloria said. "You're not. You're." He stopped, something vulnerable crossing his face. "You're the reason I remember why I wanted to be a king in the first place. To protect wolves like you. To build a kingdom where wolves are valued for who they are, not what they can offer politically." Their faces were inches apart. His hand still rested on her knees. The room felt too small and too big at the same time. "Dominic," she breathed. "I know," he said quietly. "I know this is complicated. I know you're still healing. But I need you to know." He took a breath. "You matter. To me. More than politics or crowns or any of it." Aeloria's heart was hammering. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying when we walk into that hall, I want you at my side. Not as my charge or my project. As my equal." His thumb traced a small circle on her knee. "As someone I choose." The word choose hung between them, loaded with meaning. "The mate bond," she started. "Has nothing to do with this," Dominic interrupted. "This isn't fate. This isn't destiny. This is me looking at you, knowing everything you've survived, and choosing to stand beside you anyway. If you'll have me." Tears pricked Aeloria's eyes. "You could have anyone. I don't want anyone. I want you." She kissed him. It wasn't planned. Wasn't thought through. But suddenly her hands were in his hair and his arms were around her waist, and they were kissing like drowning people finding air. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "This changes things," he said. "I know. We'll have to be careful. Strategic. I know. And if at any point you want to." "Dominic." Aeloria pulled back to look him in the eye. "Shut up and kiss me again." He did. And for the first time since the rejection, the empty space in Aeloria's chest felt full. Comment chosen over fated. If you believe love built on choice beats destiny every time. Subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories, where we value real connection over forced bonds. Wolves like Valerius will never understand. The grand hall looked exactly the same. Marble columns. Vaulted ceilings. The smell of power and politics thick enough to choke on. But Aeloria was different. She walked through the massive doors at Dominic's side, wearing the forest green dress, spine straight, chin up. Her wolf prowl just beneath her skin, awake, aware, ready. The whispers started immediately. "That's her. The one Valerius rejected. She's with the exiled king now? Cursed eyes and all. What is Dominic thinking?" Aeloria felt Dominic's hand find the small of her back. A light touch but possessive. Supporting. They made their way through the crowd. Other former alphas nodded respectfully to Dominic, though several sneered. Lady Seraphina watched from across the room with undisguised hostility. And then Aeloria saw him. Valerius stood on the same dais he'd occupied 6 months ago, surrounded by advisors and sycophants. He wore his crown and formal robes, every inch the powerful king. Their eyes met across the hall. Aeloria watched his confident expression falter, watched his nostrils flare as he caught her scent, changed now, mingled with Dominic's from hours of closeness. Watched realization crash over his features. The severed mate bond had left a scar, and scars could still hurt. Valerius said something sharp to his advisors and descended the dais, moving through the crowd with purpose. "Here we go," Dominic murmured. His hand never left her back. Valerius stopped 10 feet away, just as he had before. But this time Aeloria didn't flinch. "Aeloria." Her name came out stiff. Formal. Like he was addressing a stranger. Your Majesty, she said, equally formal. His eyes flicked to Dominic, then back. I heard rumors you'd survived. I'm glad. The word glad sounded forced. Are you? Aeloria asked. Valerius's jaw tightened. The rejection was necessary. You understand that. I understand that you valued your image more than the mate bond the moon goddess gave you. It wasn't about image. It was about the kingdom. About choosing what was best for your pride, Dominic interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. Let's be honest about what happened here, Valerius. You rejected your fated mate because she embarrassed you. Because she didn't fit your narrow definition of worthy. You have no place in this conversation, former king. And yet here I stand. Dominic smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Protecting someone you threw away like garbage. Funny how that works. The crowd around them had gone silent, sensing drama. Valerius's hands clenched at his sides. Aeloria, I've thought about what happened. Perhaps I was hasty. Perhaps we could. No. The word came out sharp and clear. Valerius blinked. No. No, Aeloria repeated. You don't get to reject me in front of hundreds of witnesses, leave me to nearly die in the mountains, and then waltz back 6 months later with perhaps I was hasty. Her voice rose. You broke something sacred because I wasn't convenient. Because I made you uncomfortable. You chose your throne over your mate. I chose my kingdom. You chose wrong. Dominic's voice cut through. And now you want to reclaim her because you've realized your mistake. But she's not a toy you can pick up when it suits you. She is my mate. Valerius snarled, alpha authority bleeding into his words. The bond was fated. The bond is dead, Aeloria said. You killed it. And I've moved on. Valerius's eyes went to where Dominic's hand rested on her back. With him? With a failed king who couldn't even hold his own throne. With a good man who saw me when I was broken and helped me heal. Who chose me when he didn't have to. Aeloria stepped forward, closing the distance. You taught me something important, Valerius. You taught me that fate isn't infallible. That bonds can be broken. And that real strength isn't about crowns or power. It's about choosing to love someone, even when destiny didn't force you to. She turned back to Dominic, whose ice blue eyes were bright with something that looked like pride. I choose him, she said clearly. Not because fate says so. Not because of a bond. Because he's worthy of being chosen. The hall erupted in whispers. Valerius stood frozen, his expression cycling through shock, anger, and something that might have been regret. You'll regret this, he said finally. No, Aeloria replied. You will. Dominic took her hand and laced their fingers together. Come on. We've said what needed saying. They turned to leave, but Lady Seraphina stepped into their path, flanked by several other nobles. Not so fast, she said. King Dominic, there's the matter of your territories. The council wishes to formally discuss succession. There's nothing to discuss, Dominic said. I gave up the crown. My brother rules in my stead. Your brother is weak. The Eastern territories are failing under his leadership. Lady Seraphina smiled coldly. Many believe they should be absorbed into stronger kingdoms. For the good of all. Many believe wrong. Then prove it. This came from an older male, one of the council elders. Challenge for your throne. Show us you're still worthy of leadership. Or admit defeat and let the territories fall to those who can actually protect them. It was a trap. Aeloria could see it clearly. If Dominic challenged, he'd be drawn back into the political nightmare he'd escaped. If he didn't, his former people would suffer. Before Dominic could respond, Valerius spoke. I second the challenge. His voice rang through the hall. Let us see if the exiled king has any strength left, or if he's been broken by his fall. The crowd murmured approval. This was entertainment now. Drama. Dominic's hand tightened on Aeloria's. She could feel the tension radiating from him. And if I refuse? Dominic asked. Then the Eastern territories are declared leaderless and open for annexation by the end of the week. Lady Seraphina's smile widened. Your choice, former king. Aeloria felt Dominic take a breath. Felt him weighing options, calculating. Then his wolf surged forward, visible in his eyes. And when he spoke, it was with the voice of a king who'd never really given up his crown. Fine, Dominic said. I'll challenge. but not for myself. He looked at the assembled leaders, his gaze steady and unflinching. I challenge for the right to protect my people, to rebuild what was taken from me through treachery, and to prove that true leadership isn't about politics. It's about standing up when wolves need you most. He turned to Valerius. And I have terms. If I win, the Eastern Territories remain independent and under my protection. And you acknowledge, publicly, that rejecting Aeloria was the act of a coward and a fool. Valerius's face went purple. You dare. I dare. Dominic stepped forward. You wanted to see if I'm broken? Let me show you exactly how wrong you are. The hall exploded in noise. Agreements. Objections. Excitement. Aeloria grabbed Dominic's arm. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. He covered her hand with his. They're using you against me, using my people as leverage. I can't walk away from that. Then let me fight with you. Aeloria. I'm not that broken Omega anymore. You trained me. You made me strong. She held his gaze. Let me stand beside you. Let me show them what we're really capable of. Dominic stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine. All right, he said. We fight together. He turned back to the council. I accept the challenge. And I name Aeloria as my partner. Whatever trial you set, we face it together. The crowd erupted again. This was unprecedented. Scandalous. Perfect. Lady Seraphina's eyes glittered with malice. Very well. The challenge will be held in 3 days. A hunt through the Blackwood Forest. You and your partner. Against whatever we decide to put in your path. If you survive and return with the required prize, your throne is restored. If you fail, we won't fail, Aeloria said. Valerius laughed bitterly. You've doomed yourself, Dominic. And taken her down with you. We'll see, Dominic replied. They left the hall together hand in hand, while the entire summit watched and whispered. Outside, Aeloria finally allowed herself to shake. That was insane. Completely. Dominic pulled her close. Are you sure about this? It's going to be dangerous. They'll make sure of it. I'm sure. She looked up at him. We're stronger together. Let them throw their worst at us. Dominic kissed her forehead. Then let's win this. For us. For your healing. And to show every wolf in there that chosen love beats fated bonds every single time. Aeloria smiled against his chest. I like those odds. 3 days later, they entered the Blackwood Forest side by side. And when they emerged victorious, carrying the impossible prize the council had demanded, covered in blood and glory and each other's scent, the entire kingdom watched as the exiled king reclaimed his throne. And as the cursed Omega stood at his side, no longer invisible, no longer broken, but chosen and powerful and exactly where she was meant to be. Valerius watched from the crowd, crown heavy on his head, throne cold beneath him, and finally understood what he'd lost. Not a mate, a kingdom's worth of love freely given, and he would spend the rest of his life knowing he'd thrown it away for pride. Subscribe to Seraphina's romance stories if you believe Dominic and Aeloria are endgame. If you believe chosen love beats forced destiny. If you believe wolves like Valerius deserve their lonely thrones. Hit that subscribe button because this is the kind of love worth fighting for.
You made it to the end. Thank you. Truly. That means more to us than you know. Can I ask you for a favor? I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The algorithm hasn't been kind to us lately. Our videos aren't reaching as many people as they should, and the entire team at Seraphina's Romance Stories is fighting to keep these stories alive. We need your help. If you genuinely enjoyed Aeloria and Dominic's story, please drop a comment, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, your family, anyone who loves a good romance. Post it on your WhatsApp status. Share it on your socials. Tell the algorithm this story matters, because that's why we pause to ask for subscriptions and comments during our videos. Not to annoy you, but because it's the only way YouTube knows to push our content to others who'd love it just as much as you did. One comment, one share. That's all it takes to help us reach someone who needs this story today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about these characters as much as we do. May love find you when you least expect it, and may you always have the courage to choose what's right for your heart. We'll see you in the next story.